I love your work. So thank you so much for
Thank
what you
you.
do.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's my favorite book. Just Breathe is my favorite book. So
Good to
yeah,
hear.
as far as breath work goes anyway, I've got other favorites in other fields, but as far as breath work, it's my favorite. So well, welcome to the Meat, Body, and Soul podcast. I am, as usual, Joe Dow. And is it nutrition that makes the most difference in your health? Is it dialing in your exercise or even your natural movement? Is it forming healthy habits? And what about all those biohacks, the supplements, and maybe finding the perfect water? Or is it as simple as taking your next breath? And I think we will be able to answer those questions and more with my next guest I'm very excited to have on. You know what? Your breath is something you can't live without, obviously. And yet many of us are not at all conscious of how it could be the aspect of your health optimization that you use more than anything, but not to its fullest potential. And not to unlock things like your pro-metabolic hormones, your fat loss, your balanced nervous system, your reversal of autoimmune, your blood sugar, your blood pressure, your sleep. The list goes on as to all the things that breath work can help you with. It's been the most powerful tool I have personally used. And I want to bring on a guy who has been teaching it longer than many of us have been alive, as well as someone who I consider a master breathwork facilitator. So, Dan Brule, Dan is a modern day teacher, healer, and world renowned pioneer in the field of breathwork. And he's one of the creators of breath therapy and a master of things like pranayama and qigong, as well as the author of one of my favorite books on breathing, Just Breathe, Master Breathwork for Success in Life, Love, Business, and Beyond. And since 1970, Dan Brule has personally trained over 300,000 people in 73 countries, which is amazing, to use breath and breathing for self-improvement and health optimization. He's trained Olympic athletes, elite warriors, martial artists, as well as coaching leading medical experts, corporate executives, and even peak performers like Tony Robbins. So I am so excited to have Dan on, and today we'll learn how the breath affects a lot of different things, like we mentioned before, your fat loss goals, your sleep goals, your hormones, the systems of your body. And with this knowledge, my hope is that after listening to this podcast, you too will understand the importance of a daily breath practice that will elevate your health to levels you have not been to yet. So, Dan, thank you so much for coming on today.
My pleasure.
You know what? I have listened to you for a long time, read your book. You started this journey of finding breath since you were a young boy, even having near-death experiences with drowning, losing your breath, getting out of breath in certain circumstances. You were a deep diver in the Navy, as well as working with the medical field, taking X-rays and even resuscitating someone who nearly died or did die on the table in front of you. So breath has always been a part of your journey. And maybe it was obviously what you were meant for, but perhaps when did you realize that breath was something that you knew you had to teach because of how transformational it was?
Well, I was the kid in the holding breath holding competitions in the schoolyard in kindergarten, and playing these hyperventilation games and squeezing each other till we passed out. I've always been somehow, obsessed with breathing, and so I can't remember, it's well from my earliest memories. I found something magical and mystical and amazing in the breath. And then every job I ever had, whether I liked it or not, it was like the spirit of breath, just like a puppy dog picking me up by the scruff of my neck and sticking my nose in breathing
Mhm,
wherever whatever else I tried to focus on.
mhm,
So yeah, you mentioned my first job was an X-ray technician. So I was X-raying people's lungs, and it was while I was an X-ray technician that I took a CPR course and I resuscitated someone, a really beautiful man. I ended up spending a lot of time sitting by his bed after he had had that death experience, and I revived him. And then when I went into the military, as you mentioned, I was a deep sea diver. I was mixing gases for deep sea diving. I held a record for breath holding in the Navy for 4 or 5 years. I was there. I had demolition training, and
mhm,
I was a medical person, and I specialized in underwater rescue. So it's something that's, it chose me. I've made a lot of conscious choices along the way, but it seemed to be, it seemed to be destiny.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's why I brought you on because, like I said, you've done it all, you've seen it all. And, as a nutritionist, people are saying to me all the time, just tell me what to eat, tell me how to exercise, what supplement should I take for my autoimmune? But when I offer them breath work, they seem to look at me with boredom or disinterest. And I'm like, why? Why is daily breath work so underrated?
Well, because I mean, a mental diet might be a heck of a lot more to do with the quality of your life and your experience than your physical diet. And our consciousness is primary. Our consciousness, what are we doing with our consciousness and our energy? And it's, I'm the one who decides, who chooses what to think and how to use my energy.
Mhm.
And so when you are playing with your breath, you're playing with the two most precious aspects of human nature. That is our consciousness and our energy.
Mhm.
And so it's impossible to play with your breath without raising your consciousness, expanding your consciousness, and without getting a handle on the very life force that sustains us. When our body was built in the womb, it was built from the energy that was being supplied directly from life through the umbilical cord.
Mhm.
And then when that cord was cut, it became our responsibility to connect to that energy, that life force energy, to maintain and sustain and animate us. And so it's not an accident that the root of the word inspiration, expiration, respiration is spirit.
Mhm.
And so by playing with our breath, we are getting a handle on the most vital, profound aspects of our nature, and that it affects our decisions, it affects cognitive abilities, it affects performance. And that's why breathwork has been the leading trend in wellness globally for a decade, for 10 years straight. Breathwork has been the leading trend in wellness globally. That's
Mhm.
not an accident. It's because it keeps unraveling, it keeps opening. And more scientific studies and medical studies are showing the power of conscious breathing.
Mhm.
So, and everybody's jumping on the bandwagon, these days. Yeah, and it's kind of cool that I was teaching breath work before it was even a thing. And now, 55 years later, it's become the leading trend in wellness in the world. And I'm fortunate to be in a position where I can say, well, I was talking about this stuff 50 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just took a while for the world to catch up.
It's so true. You're a trendsetter for sure. Like maybe all of your hard work is starting to pay off because I do hear people becoming more open about it. But like I said, I get people that don't understand the importance of breath work and how it's not just about food. It's not about exercise. When it comes to increasing your health, every breath you take matters. And we can do a lot with our breath rather than just letting it happen autonomically. And so
Oh,
in
yeah.
in what you have seen over these 55 years of teaching and doing breath work, like what in your own life or somebody else's life, what have you seen be the most transformational with somebody's health?
Well, recently, let me just point to the two most recent threads of study and digging I've been doing. One is in the elite operator world.
Mhm.
I have a friend, Scott Sonnen, who's the chief analyst for all of the Department of Energy, the CIA, FBI, all those three-letter agencies on analyzing performance, cognitive and physical performance, and coming up with protocols for peak performance, these really elite operators.
Mhm.
And breathing is their core focus and
Mhm.
monitoring breath, 24 different aspects of breathing from the chemistry to the volume to the rate to the mechanics. They wouldn't be spending, ultra money studying this stuff if it wasn't really important and making the difference that it really is to make in that field.
Mhm.
And if you look at the top tennis players in the world, the top golfers, whoever, that at that 1% level, everyone's skill is pretty close.
Mhm.
And on any given day, anybody who has even a little advantage, they win the day. And that advantage over the last few years has gotten very, very clear is around breathing, breath control, and all of the chain reaction of biological, chemical, cognitive effects that run downstream from getting a handle on our breath. And and I think that's also why a lot of people just go, breathing, what are you talking about? What's the
Right.
learn? No, breathing, schmeathing,
Yeah.
meditation, schmeditation. What's the big deal? Well, the simplest things, the most basic things always turn out to be the most powerful. And
Right.
so it shouldn't surprise us that something that's literally right under our nose, we overlook it, we underestimate it, turns out to be where some of the real advantages are hidden right there in plain sight.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it takes the average person, isn't privy to a lot of this stuff. And so for them, it's kind of like, well, yeah, Hillary Clinton, Oprah, Beyonce, we keep hearing about these celebrities and people who are, raving about breath work, but it's starting to crack. The mainstream is waking up to breathing finally,
Mm-hmm.
which the problem used to be there wasn't enough information or it wasn't getting to people. And now, as I look at it, the problem is too much information or misinformation
Mm-hmm.
or conflicting information.
Yeah.
And so I feel it's kind of a responsibility to have people focus on fundamentals, on basic, on unarguable science and real life experience. And once a person has an experience, they don't need anybody to convince them. They don't need evidence. They're living with the benefit, and it motivates them to want to dig further and look into it even more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like how you mentioned the athlete part of it because I mean that they're all trained in some form of the way you breathe through your movement. And it's natural human biology to have breath work with movement. That's how we move and live and breathe. Many of my listeners are, more carnivore or meat-based, and they know the value of protein, sunlight, grounding, avoiding non-native EMFs. But breath work is like the forgotten part of our natural human biology that we need. And so, I was reading on your blog, you had a picture of a bodybuilder and a guy that
Right.
obviously you would put him on there maybe because he does some sort of breath work. You had learned some things from him, even the way he lived his life and stuff. But with him and specifically, like when it comes to like fat loss and metabolism, have you seen breath work be a really big factor in helping somebody achieve like aesthetic goals even?
Oh yeah, that you're talking about Sabatini. He's up in
Yeah.
Canada. He hired me to come up and just do a personal training and coaching with him and his family and his staff.
Hmm.
Uh, that photo's from 20 years ago. He's matured. He's developed. He's into a lot of other health stuff. But yeah, that's 70% of our metabolic waste is eliminated through respiration.
Yeah.
Only 3% through defecation,
Hmm.
7% through urination, 20% through perspiration. And so if somebody thinks having good regular bowel movements and working up a good sweat is healthy, you have to think about breathing because that's where the mother load of toxins are released.
Hmm.
And when people lose weight, where do you think that weight goes? It's the carbon in
Right.
carbon dioxide.
Hmm.
So we breathe out a couple of pounds of CO2, I think, every day. And
Hmm.
so as you're processing all that stuff, and where does the weight go? It literally is the carbon atom molecule that's where the weight lies. And so breathing is one of the main hidden, functions connected to weight loss.
Hmm.
And also how well we process food and nutrients, how oxygen gets to the brain is a depends on the level of CO2 in our lungs and in our bloodstream. And so, breathing is a way that we regulate pH, whether we like it or not, or want to or not. Carbon dioxide is a volatile acid. So if you overbreathe, you blow off too much CO2 and your pH tips in the direction of alkaline. If you hold your breath, CO2 builds up and you tip your pH in the other direction of acid. So unconscious breathing habits can be really getting in the way of a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And by controlling your breathing, it's biohacking. You can get a handle on, if you hyperventilate for 1 minute, you can decrease the oxygen to your brain by 60%. Anyone can do it with no practice whatsoever. You want to decrease the supply of oxygen and nutrients to your brain, hyperventilate for 60 seconds. It's all the MRAs, all the MRIs and scanning stuff show it unarguably.
Mm-hmm.
So if people are rushing and gasping at their breath of this anxiety epidemic that people are living with and don't even recognize, they're always sort of got their foot on the sympathetic branch of the nervous system with the stress and the keeping up. That's causing certain breathing patterns that are exacerbating and a lot of other issues. And, 60% of the ambulance calls in the major cities of the United States are linked to dysfunctional breathing. You know how many people have anxiety attacks and think they're having a heart attack, and the anxiety is being caused by or made worse by their unconscious breathing patterns? Mm-hmm. So the average person really needs to wake up and realize, whoa, wait a minute, it's not an accident that our breathing is completely automatic and totally under our control. Mm-hmm. That is not an accident of nature. That's not a coincidence. That's an invitation. It's an opportunity for us to take part in our nature, to get a handle on what's happening in these so-called involuntary factors or operations in the body and functions. They become controllable and manageable through the breath.
Mm. I so love that you brought up like how we actually breathe out fat whenever that's how we fat burn, is we're exhaling, we're getting rid of carbon and carbon dioxide, and that's where the fat is coming out. So if people will think about that when they're on some sort of an aesthetic fat loss journey, they really need to be considering breath work and the importance of it. And we can even break it down further because, like you mentioned, the anxiety piece, eliciting a cortisol response. Cortisol can be a fat storing hormone because it's eliciting that gluconeogenesis and giving us sugar even when we're trying not to have a donut. Our body will make its own donut. And so by controlling that stress mechanism with our breath, we can actually see more aesthetic goals. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And people they get confused between the absence of pain and the presence of pleasure. So just because something isn't bothering you doesn't mean you're not living with it and it's having really, bad effects on your life and your health. We can get into habits. And if things feel normal, they may not be natural or healthy, but they feel normal. And so there's no alarm buttons going off because it's like boiling a frog. Mm-hmm. And that's why, putting together this idea of, how is fat processed and released through breathing, put that together with powerful diaphragmatic breathing exercises. And now breathing can really turn into something that, you're exercising as you're breathing, which compounds the benefits. So, there's a lot of things people can do with their breath, and it's my job as a missionary of the breath to turn people onto it.
Oh, I love that. A missionary of the breath. That's great. Well, you segued perfectly into my next question because, let's talk exercise. We know movement is good, but like I'm a stand-up paddler, for instance. I love to go out on the water and paddle. And I've recently, like in the past couple of years, added breath work into every stroke. So I take an inhale stroke, I take an exhale stroke. And so every stroke has some sort of breath, whether it's in or out. And that keeps me focused. I can go longer. I can endure for miles and miles, but also it's almost like this moving meditation. So let's talk about when you can focus on adding breath work to your movement, whether it's weight training or obviously in yoga, they use a lot of breath work, but even something, like cycling or running, when you really match your breath to the movement, what happens?
Yeah, well, that's one of the brilliant practices in breath work, combining breathing with movement. Mm-hmm. In the same way you combine breathing with visualization or breathing with sound. Combining breathing and movement is a no-brainer. Like look at that Karate Kid movie, wax on, wax off. If you washing dishes, you can link breathing. Walking to the bus stop, you can breathe in rhythm to your footsteps.
Mm,
This is doing a number of things. For one thing, there's already a marriage, between the heart and the lungs. And there's already a marriage between the body and the mind,
mhm,
and the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. And that the bridge, the bond is the breath. The breath is the link between the body and the mind, and between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind, between the spiritual and the material. And so by consciously engaging in our breath, and you don't even have to make special time for it. You can find something you're already doing and just bring breath awareness to it. That by itself is so powerful. And then integrate conscious breathing or rhythmic breathing into movements. That's a fundamental principle in breath work, and anybody can do it, like starting right now. You
yeah.
can tune into your heartbeat, and then you just breathe in for 2 beats and out for 3, or breathe in for 4 and out for 4. Just anything that's interesting or enjoyable. Nature wouldn't screw with us. If you find some way of breathing, incorporating it into movement that you find interesting or enjoyable, that's nature's way of teaching us, where it's taking advantage of some natural propensities we have. It's interesting, it's comfortable, it's enjoyable. And that's nature saying, yoo-hoo, keep doing it, do it more.
Mhm.
And I train Olympic athletes. I trained quite a few of them over the years. And one recently, a triathlon athlete in South Africa, who the bicycling was his most difficult part. And so he just decided that that's all he was going to do when he got on the bicycle portion, was just focus on his breathing, nothing else. And he said, Dan, I couldn't believe it. I got off that bicycle. I wasn't winded. I was ready to go. I broke my earlier times. And he was like just amazed that all he did was just turn it into a meditation, and you use the right word, on his breathing while he was pedaling,
Mhm.
and broke his own record. So
Wow.
you anybody can do that. Think of something you're already doing, and then find a way to integrate conscious breathing into it. And I dare you not to notice that you have gotten better. It's easier. It's guaranteed.
Well, you're picking up on my brain waves, because I was actually going to ask you at this point, like, could we give a little sample breath work, right where everybody, well, no matter if they're on a treadmill or they're in their car or they're, doing housework while they're listening to this, can we just take them through something really easy and simple that they can start with, just a little sample breath work?
Yeah. So let me preface this by saying there are two main aspects to breath work. One is breath awareness.
Yeah.
The other is conscious breathing. So breath awareness, there's no verb there. Conscious breathing, this is now you doing it. So breath awareness is you're already breathing. You don't even have to breathe in any special way. What you need to do is just bring your attention to the breath. It's a mindfulness practice. It's a meditative awareness that you're developing. And so it's like listening to music, right? Breathing is like listening to a symphony orchestra. So you can't be driving right now. But if you close your eyes and then just focus on the sensations at the tip of the nose,
Mhm.
and notice the sensation. Don't think about them, but just tune into them, like you're looking more closely than you ever have, listening more closely, sensing more intimately. There are details in the breathing that you haven't observed. And these points in the breathing are like a doorway, like a key to a new consciousness, a new reality, but they're very subtle. So what we want to start with is bringing some subtle awareness to these subtle sensations of breathing, starting at the tip of the nose. You breathe in and out, and you could play with your breath to kind of light up the feelings, make them easier to sense. But just at the tip of the nose, all of your attention, all of your awareness, and notice the air when it comes in and when it goes out, and feel the details of those sensations. You might notice the air is a little cooler coming in, a little warmer going out. And then bring your attention further into your nasal passages, maybe up at the bridge of the nose, and sense the breath from that vantage point. Meditate on the breath, listen, watch, look, feel, as if you're just positioning your attention deeper into the nasal passages up towards the bridge of the nose and sensing the breath from that place. Very Zen-like, moment to moment, present moment awareness of the sensations you pick up when you bring your attention further into your nasal passages.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that so much because the world, and you just wrote a blog on this, but the world is like there is so much tension and stress, and people are living these go, go, go lifestyles where it's just to cram as much into one day and then crash into bed at night and repeat the whole day over again. And there is no awareness, there's no consciousness. It's just like that movie Click, or where they're just running on autopilot and they don't even know what they're doing. But if people will just take a second and do exactly what you just did, that can be a small piece of peace in their day.
Oh,
Just a
game changer.
small piece. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, game. And if you do it for 10 to 15 minutes as a practice, then when you do it just for 1 or 2 breaths, you derive a whole lot of benefit from it because you've actually spent the time really going deep into the meditation. So even if you're stuck in traffic and you only have a minute between when the light changes, you could just focus on your breath and come back into your body, vent a little stress, redirect energy, and these little moments become real, like little renewals.
Yeah.
So that's the first part of breath awareness. See, and notice we didn't breathe in any special way.
Mm-mm.
And you can take that practice further, like into the skull and sinuses, where you sense the breath from the area of your sinuses, and come around to the throat and just feel and listen into the throat as a way of focusing on your breath, or up under your collarbones in your upper chest and notice the movements there, or down in your heart space and your rib cage and feel the expansion, and down into your abdomen and all the way to the floor of the pelvis, and see if you can follow the breath through the whole course it takes. And any one of these places, or all of them combined, become a way of becoming very present, very mindful, and you're going to perform better. This is why does a basketball player or an Olympic diver, why the last thing they do before they shoot or jump is they close their eyes, they take a breath. That's to gather energy, gather focus so they can perform. And that should be everyone's practice, because whatever you're doing deserves for you to show up fully. If you really want to maximize the benefit, you need to show up. And breathing is a way that we can show up fully and practice showing up fully.
Yeah, and I love that showing up doesn't have to be like show up in full peak performance. That you get to peak performance with showing up in the breath. Like I work, I homeschool, I have like a busy morning, but always in the first part of my day when I'm laying in bed, I have breath work so that I have a little peace when I start my day. Then I get a little busy into the day. And then I always schedule in my little, like, I get in my cold tub outside, which isn't that cold because it's like 95 degrees outside right now. So it's like, the tub's probably 75. So I get in, and that is my piece of the day when I do 15, 20, 30 minutes of breath work because I love it so much. It's like I start to crave it, Dan. Like, why is breath work, the more you do it, the more addicting you get addicted to it.
Yeah, no, it's because of the practice, and just as a way to interrupt the pattern.
Mm-hmm.
You start to get stressed. You notice yourself getting triggered. You overreact. You start to get brain fog or whatever. A couple of breaths can just bring you right back into good mode. So just using it to interrupt patterns, to reinforce certain things. And more, I'm teaching people to just consciously use it. If you're going to look at something, don't just look at it. Breathe in what it is you're looking at. Mm-hmm. If you're going to listen to something, don't just listen. Imagine using your breath to take in the sound into your heart, into every cell of your body. This is an untapped natural resource we have on how to connect. And if you're a teacher, if you have important meetings, you want to be able to really connect to people, connect, with your heart, connect with your mind, connect energetically. And breathing is a powerful tool for deepening connections and getting better at just sensing things.
Yeah. So I promise anybody that's listening, once you start, it's going to be hard to stop. You're going to want to add it
Yeah,
into all parts of your day. And I'm finding myself like I might have a day where I can't get to my tub and get to my breath work. So wherever I am, I'm just like, okay, well, I can't get there. So now I'm doing like a 2 minute breath practice while I'm standing in line at the grocery store. Like you can make it anywhere, but you have to sit, like you said, it starts with awareness. What am I doing right now? Can I pause? Can I find peace in this moment? Can I take a second for myself while I'm taking care of someone else? So,
yeah. One of the latest studies, it's been 6, 7 months now, came out of the Ubman lab at Stanford University on what they studied they called cyclical sighing.
mm,
Basically, it's just a sigh of relief. Everybody knows what it is. You don't need an expert to teach you. But what they found was if you do the cyclical sighing, they call it a physiological sigh,
mhm.
and everybody knows it. Take in a long inhale. Ah,
Mm.
and do that again and again for 5 minutes. It has more benefits than any stress and anxiety coping technique they've tested, and more benefits than any meditation technique they've tested. A simple sigh of relief, exaggerated, done dramatically, done with a full body awareness, and the benefits are immediate and profound, and everybody already knows how to do it.
Mhm.
The difference is doing it consciously and deliberately, and then exaggerating it. So that's, we talked about breath awareness as a simple practice that anyone can do, but a sigh of relief that you just take a few moments, taking a long inhale, maybe 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 seconds long through the nose, and then a big dramatic theatrical release on the exhale. Ah, and that simple thing has neuroscientists scratching their head and going, "What? How can so many benefits come out of something so simple?" Hey, well, that's nature at work. We shouldn't be surprised. But that's the next technique that I teach everyone is sigh of relief.
Mhm.
And I don't teach it to them. I just remind them and I encourage them to put more into it. And if you combine visualization, imagination, intention with that sigh of relief, you turbocharge it.
Mhm. I like what you said there is I don't teach them, I remind them. And I believe that. I believe that breath is always in us. When you watch a baby breathe, I have a brand new baby niece right now. And when I watch her belly breathe, like it's like the perfect breath, like you watch her breathe so perfectly. And so breath is always
You
in
know
us. We
why?
just, we
Because
just
she's
got
not.
distracted from the world,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, well, that's the point. The reason the child has that perfect breath is because they are not doing the breathing. They are literally being breathed.
Mm, mhm,
That's one thing. That's how we take back our power, because whenever we control our breathing, it's usually because we're under stress, we're at the end of our rope, or some emotion is just, we've been hijacked by our emotions. We're working, we're trying, we're doing, we're resisting, we're avoiding, we're afraid. And this is when we come in and develop this relationship with the breath. And so no wonder it's dysfunctional. But children, fortunately, haven't gotten to that yet. And they're still able to be in the state of surrender, where the breath itself can breathe in the most ideal way. And that's really what I'm teaching these days is helping people get back to that. Control is one thing and surrender is another. And especially when it comes to breathing, it's like a dance
mhm,
between doing and being. I breathe my breath, but then I have to be able to let the breath breathe me. I breathe my body, but I also have to let the body breathe itself. And in this beautiful dance, that's where our performance goes through the roof. That's where we return to our real true selves. And so that's where the game is, in this game of the dance of doing and being, of being breathed and doing the breathing. And that's where we unlock all this potential.
Something you said, the control and the breath. I recently, like, because I do a lot of emotional work with myself, and So it brought to mind what I had come up with was that, we're always trying to control things, or at least in my case, I'm like, got to control my environment, control my child, control everything, have a good, clean house and do all the things. But I realized doing some emotional work that we have no control. Like at any moment, my house could be blown away by a tornado right after I clean it. At any
Yeah.
moment, my daughter could choose not to obey me. At any moment, I could lose work and not be in control of my work environment. And so, really, we have no control over anything. But there's a comfort in that because I realized if I just let things happen organically and I find peace in every situation and I do the very best I can with good energy, then I'm staying in the control that I have, which is to not have to be in control, to let life breathe me, like you said.
Yeah, well, what you're doing intuitively, you're practicing to, I think, the most precious. If you're going to develop something, develop resilience,
Mm,
because you're right. I mean, there's no certainty in
mm-mm,
this dimension. It's an illusion, right?
mhm.
We're only sure of something until life bangs us on the head and goes, "Yeah, you thought you were sure? Well, look at this."
Right.
So, if you're going to practice something, don't practice control. Learn to really get resilient
Mhm.
and learn how to go with the flow, because when a tsunami comes, I don't care how smart you are, how strong you are, how fast you are, you better be, when life comes, you got to be able to flow with it. You can't fight it. And so what you just described is really beautiful. You're talking about developing resilience and developing this capacity to go with the flow of life as it unfolds. And there are a lot of other skills. We can control things, but there's going to come a point in our life when the only path is surrender, and it
Mhm.
doesn't matter. And if you haven't practiced that, you're going to have a really uncomfortable situation. So, yeah, I love hearing that from you, because that just highlights two of the most important aspects of why would a person practice breath work to begin with: to become more resilient, to develop this intuitive ability to sense a flow of life and flow with it and not fight it and get exhausted in the process.
Well, I'll be honest, part of that emotional work was from your book. So if nobody has your book yet, like it really does help you go through some emotional things too. I want to switch gears just for a second though, and maybe we could rapid fire about things that using breath can help with, like even such things as like, have you worked or seen someone reverse things like an autoimmune or some sort of chronic illness by really focusing on some sort of breath work?
Oh, absolutely. In 50 years, for a while I was in the Louise Hay community with a lot of the AIDS guys back in the 80s.
Yeah.
And I saw with my own eyes, and I witnessed remarkable healing of AIDS, remissions, reversals, blood pressure, asthma, diabetes. I honestly, I've seen too many miracles to have the luxury of doubt. But I find that it's not. It's centered on the breathing, but what are you willing to experience? What do you dare believe? What are you putting into the practice? Because I think Eckhart Tolle said, if you watch a child play, they don't get joy out of what they do, they put joy into what they do. And
Hmm.
so with breath work, what you get out of it depends on what you put into it. And I've derived a formula I call formula for transformation on what it is we need to put into breath work in order to get the most out of it. And the first thing is consciousness awareness. There's just no way around it. We have to develop this ability to a meditative awareness, of mindfulness, of a Zen-like ability to just be present. Don't project things from the past. Don't imagine things from the future. Get comfortable with this state of just being present in the moment. And since breathing is happening moment to moment, by focusing on the breath, we come into the present moment.
Hmm.
And the other skill or what makes the miracles in breath work, the first is this awareness. We bring more consciousness than usual, and that unlocks some of the power and potential that's in the breath. The second is the ability to let go, the
Mm.
ability to relax. Relaxing is not, I'm just relaxed and not relaxed. There are levels of relaxation. There are dimensions of relaxation. How quickly can I relax? How deeply can I relax? How totally can I relax? In the middle of what situations and circumstances can I relax? And this is where breath work is powerful, because every breath we take, we have an opportunity to get better at letting go, at relaxing. So we let go of the exhale and you let go of your jaw. You let go of the exhale, you let go of your shoulders, and you get really good at literally learning to relax. And the third ingredient that I see when miracles happen, and I'm not exaggerating when I have literally seen and participated in and witnessed a lot of miracles, is breathing the energy and not just air. This is where you get into the spiritual sort of mystical woo-woo part of it. But in every ancient language, the word for air and the word for breath and the word for God and the word for spirit, it's the same word.
Mhm.
And in the East, they talk about prana or chi or ki. In the Hebrew tradition, there's breath within the breath, the life force energy within the breath. So there's air, but there's an energy within the air. And this is the real art, learning to breathe energy and not just air. And that's a life skill that people can develop with awareness and relaxation. You can hack into the breath and you can begin to breathe the life force, the prana, the chi, the ki, the spirit, and not just the air. And this is when the miracles, the healing, the growth, the quantum leaps, and all that stuff really begins to happen, when those three factors come together: consciousness, relaxation, and breathing. And so that's where I spend all of my time teaching newbies, is learning to use your breath to become more conscious, learning to use your breath to relax more deeply, and using the breath to begin to get in touch with the energy within the breath. And that's the formula, that's the secret. And it doesn't take long to learn. These are natural abilities just waiting to be awakened or remembered.
Wow. No, I mean, so much goes back to the breath because, like we touched on cortisol before, when we have pain, you have chronic illness, you have digestive issues, you have sleep issues, you have all these things going on in your body. When you can dial in the breath and you can start to find that, like you said, the levels of relaxation, and you stop eliciting inflammatory cytokines and you stop eliciting this stress response in your body has a chance to heal no matter what it is. Like your body has
Yeah.
a chance to come back online.
Mm-hmm.
With regard to this, have you even seen things like if somebody's trying to get their hormones, maybe a woman after menopause, she's trying to regulate her hormones and, boost testosterone and get estrogen back in balance and detoxify things out of her body that are causing like insulin resistance? Like, can breath work? Have you seen hormonal changes with breath work?
Oh, of course, because we have a pharmacy in our head and our brain,
I love that.
and under this, only this generation, the last 20 years, have we discovered that 80% of the information that travels through the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve, there's two of them. It's the biggest nerve in the body.
Mhm.
Vagus is the same root as vagabond, and
Mhm.
they named it the vagus nerve because it wanders to all the vital organs and all the important areas of the body. And up until 20 years ago or so, scientists just thought, oh, this is how the brain controls everything in the body. But recently they realized 80% of the information goes from the body to the brain, not from the brain to the body.
Mhm.
And breathing is the number one way. Using the diaphragm and the breathing muscles is the number one way to activate the vagus nerve and then choose the signals that get sent to the brain. And then the brain has no choice but to manufacture all of these chemicals because of the information it's getting. So if you're not conscious of your breathing, you're sending emergency signals to your brain without realizing it. And your brain is on this path to try to deal with this illusion that you're creating with dysfunctional breathing. But as soon as you get a handle on your breathing, then you control the information that goes up to the brain, and the brain will magically and naturally produce all of the proper chemicals and proteins and all that stuff that's needed to maximize function. It's a no-brainer because the body is literally instructing the brain on what it needs. And we're not the one trying to think, oh, what should I do?
Mhm. Oh, I love the pharmacy in your head. That's what I'm going to have to title this podcast is because it is so true. It's in our body, it's in our head, it's in our lungs. It's like we can do all the things with our breath. So even, like I mentioned, emotional work and trauma. Trauma is such a thing right now that so many people are trying to address their past traumas. And if I can just speak frankly for myself recently, like doing some of the breath work I learned from you, I was thinking about this like really a joyful moment. Like I wanted to go back in time and think about the most joyful moment or a moment filled with immense love. So I'm like in my cold tub, I'm like breathing and I all of a sudden just think about my dad's hug. So my dad passed away from alcoholism when I was in my 20s. And from that point on, I had kind of autoimmune issues for after so there's that whole other piece about how the emotional becomes the physical. But where the trauma was in my lungs. Anytime I would get sick, I would go right into a chest cold. It was never just a head cold. It would always go into a chest cold. Or anytime I would get a little sore throat, turn into laryngitis and a chest cold, and I'd lose my voice and things like that. But it was always like this heaviness in my lungs. When I got toxic mold, it attacked my lungs. Like everything was all about my lungs. So long story short, during this piece of like visualizing my dad's hugs, my dad had these great big bear hugs that every time I would like collapse in his arms and I just felt so open and so like free whenever he would hold me. And so I envisioned that. And at that moment, the part of my lungs that always feels tight, the upper part of my chest, it opened and I breathed this breath that I hadn't felt in a long time. And I was like, this is the grief. Like this is grief I haven't addressed from losing my dad. And I can visualize now every time I want to heal my lungs and breathe deeper than I normally can, this image of love of my dad hugging me. And I can open my lungs further and I can go back to the way I breathed before he died. And that has been so profound. So that to me was healing trauma. Like that I felt the trauma kind of dissipate with that breath.
Wow, and you're not the only one. You just touched on some really important things. The first one, I'm really gonna. I got it while you were talking that when we breathe in a certain way, we are writing a prescription, and then it's sent up to that pharmacy in our brain to be filled.
Wow.
And so you want to choose how you breathe because that's the prescription that's going to get filled in your brain. And if you're rushing your inhales, if you're aborting your exhales, and if you're breathing with fear and anxiety, that's what you're writing a script on. And that's what the dose you're going to be given. So thank you for giving me that little extra insight to add to my rap.
Yeah.
And what you just talked about is trauma. Trauma is stored in the body. And breathing is a body-oriented practice that opens and softens and releases stuff that's trapped in the body. And the use of visualization is so powerful. We can't overlook that. It used to be considered, well, kind of woo-woo, new agey sort of thing. But I have a good friend, Mark Devine, Navy SEAL, who he swears by it. He saved his life because of it. And he's trained Navy SEALs to use visualization. They wouldn't waste their time on stuff that wasn't making a difference. And so, think of the most beautiful moment you've ever had and bring it to life and breathe. And this is the energy that's your body's going to be, the field it's going to be in as it's reproducing cells and producing chemicals of a certain quality and a certain nature. And it's about controlling our state. We may not be able to control a lot of things in our life, but we control what we focus on. We control what we choose to think. We control what we do with our energy. And that turns out to be the main thing in the end.
Yeah.
So I love that you to mention that about your father, because that's one example that everybody can find examples like that. Focus on a beautiful moment. Focus on a time when you felt absolutely wonderful and then breathe fully and freely. And this alchemy process begins to take place. A natural healing and creative process, energy is being activated, and we're going to receive the benefit from it without doubt.
Yeah, and you heal trauma. You can heal a lot of different things in your body too, like just all kinds of autoimmune and gut issues because people like when something's hard to digest that you go through, like it becomes like your digestive issues start there, like that your body doesn't know how to do it on a physical level if you didn't address it on an emotional level. So breath work can definitely help with trauma recovery. Now,
Oh,
as we move on to the end here, because I want to be respectful of your time. Let's talk the logistics. You know, you probably get asked this all the time, and I already know your answer, but I want you to say it. But what's the best form of breath work that we should do?
yeah. Well, if you can find one breathing exercise that makes you more conscious, more
Yeah.
mindful,
Mm-hmm.
and at the same time energizes you and relaxes you, you have found the perfect Goldilocks breath. You found it. A
Mm-hmm.
breath that simultaneously makes you more conscious, helps you relax, and energizes you. And that could be different for different people. But just starting with a sigh of relief and incorporating those elements into it, you will create and discover the ideal breath for you.
Mm-hmm.
And then what you do is you bring in universal principles, rhythm,
Mm-hmm.
circles and cycles, yin and yang, active and passive. So you identify that beautiful breath that, wow, it just puts you in a nice state. You feel kind of clean and relaxed and energized. So now you've identified a really good breath. And now the game is bring in rhythm, bring in cycles, circles, repetition, bring in this principle of yin and yang, active and passive, these polarities, active inhale, passive exhale, or active exhale, passive inhale, and let your intuition begin to guide you. And short of intuition, go to breathmastery.com or get onto my Instagram at Dan Brule Official, and I'm dumping techniques and lessons and exercises out into the world constantly.
Yeah.
Pick any one of them and play with it, and then you can morph it and tweak it according to your own needs and interests and pleasure. And you can step onto this road. We're all meant to be masters of our own life, and getting a handle on the breath puts us in the best position to be that master.
Yeah, and I could ask things like the frequency and how often, Dan, but like people already know this. Like you have to make it part of your life. You have to fit it in every day in all through your day. You know, sometimes I start my morning with I love breathing to rhythm. So I'll find a rhythm and I'll match my breath to the rhythm with like an energizing
Yeah.
breath because there's different types of breath that gives you energy. There's breaths that calm you down. And so I like to start with that. As I'm driving somewhere, I might be working on coherent breath to kind of keep myself relaxed, like
Ooh,
5 counts in, five
yeah.
counts out. I relax my body every time I get to a stoplight. I have to relax all my muscles. And then as the day goes on, then I'm working more like calming down my nervous system from having cortisol all day and doing more of those longer breath holds and things like that. So there's no right or wrong way, but it's consistency that's the key, right?
Oh, yeah. And you just mentioned, I mean, if people really want a specific breathing exercise, I say the triangle breath.
Yeah.
Inhale, exhale, pause.
Hmm.
Inhale, exhale, pause. And you could inhale for 4, exhale for 4, and pause for 4. It
Hmm.
doesn't matter. You just take that little, I call it the triangle breath, or do box breathing. Inhale, pause, exhale, pause. Inhale, pause, exhale, pause. And you could do 4, 4, 4, 4, 2, 2, 2, 2, 10, 10, 10, 10. That part of it is just, personal pleasure.
Hmm.
Or do what you mentioned, coherent breathing.
Hmm.
4, 5, 6 seconds in, 4, 5, 6 seconds out, 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out.
Yeah.
Those are 3 very specific breathing exercises that people can zero in on. And if you can count, then you're all set. Triangle breath, box breathing, or coherent breathing, which there's a moment of transition, but no real pause. And then maybe the fourth, suggestion would be circular breathing.
Mm,
Inhale connects to the exhale, exhale to the inhale. So it's like a wheel of breath, or what's called in special forces world, tactical breathing,
I love
which
that.
is no pauses anywhere. Just inhale, exhale, inhale, like a
Mhm.
smooth wheel turning. There's 5 specific breathing techniques or exercise that you can use, and any one of them is going to take you to the next whatever else you need to engage in, or do complementary practices and so on.
hmm Yeah, I love tactical is one of my favorite. And a lot of these are in your book. So when they get your book, Just Breathe, they can start to learn some of these. But over the next little bit, like over the next month, I'm recording like 21 different days of breath work for my listeners so that I'm just going to have little shorts where they can come on and
Oh,
learn a
cool.
technique. I'm just going to share it and then they can pick the one that they like after the 21 days and make that part of their daily life. Or maybe it's going to be 5 or 6 of them that they like. But that's something that I'm working on just to give out to my listeners. But you also have something you wanted to give out to my listeners, yeah?
Oh yeah, I have. We have a gift. It was originally a product called an outrageous offer,
Hmm
where we packaged up, I think, 4 or 5 of our most popular digital products, and they were this package called the outrageous offer. Lots and lots of people bought into it, and now that's been pretty much has become like a gift. I use it for bonuses and various promotions, but I offer it as a gift.
Mm,
And so I'll give you the link to that so any of your listeners
okay,
can freely download this collection of materials.
awesome.
And I'd give a link to my favorite course right now called Mastering the Breath.
Yeah.
It was a month-long practitioner training years ago. I charged $2,500 to become a practitioner for 1 month, and
hmm
we put all that into a single course for
Mm,
like $97 or something. And
yeah.
so that's been very popular. People just can't say enough good things about it. I'm really, really pleased. And so I'll give you a link to that for people who really want to dig deep into mastering the breath. That's literally what the course is called. So I'll give you this free collection, and I'll give you a link to something if people really want to dive deep into mastering the breath.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully, as I become an adult, I'll be able to get in on your 1 year breathwork practitioner program because I saw
Oh,
that. And
don't
I'm like,
hurry. Don't hurry,
I
because I don't know what I want to be when I grow up yet.
No, I know I want to do that though. Like breath work, just like you, like as when you experience it, it somehow it's like you start to breathe that and go, I can't not do this. Like I can't not teach people. I can't not like promote breath work because I've seen the transformation in my lives. And I'll tell you, the clients that I have that are doing breath work, they're getting the most results. The ones that have like I said, looked at me with boredom and disinterest when I've offered to do them, they're not. I'm sorry, I'm calling you out. Like you're not getting to the next level. You're just going to stay where you are. Breath work is where it's at. So yeah, we'll
Hey,
have all your links for that you've mentioned today. And thank you so much for that gift. Now, I have one final question that I like to ask all my guests, and this is a quote from Audrey Hepburn. It's one of my favorite quotes, and it's, I believe that every day should have at least one exquisite moment. Dan, what is your exquisite moment today?
just remembering that every breath is a blessing. I mean,
Mm,
just stop and realize, oh my God, the fact that I can breathe, that's a blessing.
yeah.
And just take a moment to just acknowledge and be grateful for the fact that we're alive and we can breathe.
Yeah.
And the other thing is just making each breath a prayer. Uh,
Love that.
every breath a prayer, every breath a blessing. Those are exquisite moments for me.
I love that because, as Bon Jovi said, we're living on a prayer. So we're living on our breath. So every breath should be a prayer, and it can be a prayer of gratitude to our Creator, like for giving us this breath too. So I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time, Dan. And we're going to do this again. And
Good.
I have way more stuff, as you know, there's so much connected to breath. So we will do this again if you'll allow me to.
I love it. And maybe we'll meet actually on the road in one of my live seminars or workshops or trainings around the world. So I'll look
Oh,
forward to it.
good. Yeah, I'll look forward to your schedule. I think you'll send me that and then I'll have a schedule of where I can find you.
Good. All right. Well, thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Bye for now.
Yep. Bye bye.
Well,
after much deliberating and decision making, I have some news to share. I've decided to run my consulting business on a pay-what-you-want donation-based approach. That's right, all my coaching calls, consultations, and even a couple of new services I've added are now a pay-what-you-want fee. With how expensive everything is in the world, I don't think your health should be something that you can't afford to take care of. I love what I do, and working with clients on their health goals, it's my passion, and I don't want to let the cost of figuring out what's going on with your health to be the reason why you won't work on it with me. So whether it's a 30-minute express coaching call, a full-scale nutrition therapy consultation, one of my new lifestyle and habit-forming coaching calls I offer, or my most exciting offer, breathwork coaching, it's all donation-based. You can learn more or sign up at meetbodyandsoul.com/services. And listen, don't let any cost, anyone, anything hold you back from feeling better. You haven't come this far in life for you to only come this far. You can go farther, and I would love to be your coach and your cheerleader to help you get there.